Welcome to Story Mix Craft and Conversation. I'm Jasmine Richards, author, editor, and founder of Story Mix, the multi-award-winning inclusive fiction studio. This is the podcast where I talk with the writers and illustrators behind Story Mix titles about the craft of storytelling, the realities of publishing, and how creative careers actually get built. Hello listeners, and welcome to Season 2. It's been a while since we made the first season of Craft and Conversation, and publishing has changed a little bit in that time. There is less marketing support for books generally, and less marketing support specifically for books by creators from minoritized backgrounds. Far too often, really brilliant work is being lost, not because there is no audience for it, but because that audience never gets the chance to discover it. We're going to do something about that, and why not? It's our 7-year anniversary, and so we're going to celebrate 7 books coming out in 2026. We're starting with Siren, author of Princess Apparently, published by Osborne on the 13th of August. This conversation goes to some places I was not necessarily expecting. We get into the sliding door history at the heart of the book, and what happens when you imagine a Caribbean monarchy from the 1700s that survived into the present day. We talk about mixed race identity, first love, politics, and what Siren's work as a teacher has taught her about how badly adults can underestimate teenagers. We also discover that she wrote a good chunk of this book in coffee shops in Tunisia, that The Outsiders and Noughts and Crosses changed her life as a teenager, and that apparently I once had to be persuaded that she was the right writer for this book. Spoiler, she absolutely was. So, here's my conversation with Siren Knight. Hello and welcome to Story Mix Craft and Conversation, the podcast where we talk to the writers and illustrators behind Story Mix books about the craft, challenges, and opportunities that shape their work. Siren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you today because the book you've written, Princess Apparently, which comes out in August, just gives us so much to dig into. We've got history and monarchy and modern teenage life. We sort of talk about mixed race identity and even a little bit about climate activism and what it means to be political as a teen, first love, family, friendship, and also that feeling of standing between two different worlds and being in the in-between. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I don't think there's anyone else I'd want to talk to about that theme. So before we get into Princess Apparently, we're going to start with our Story Mix rapid fire round. Are you ready?
I think so.
Born ready.
Born ready.
Okay, so first up, tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Ooh, fun. I'm an avid traveler. I've seen a lot of the world, backpacked Nepal and India, most of America, Jamaica, Africa. I ended up in hospital in Africa, but that's a story for another time.
Oh, wow. Did you say Nepal?
Nepal, yeah. I went on a plane around the Himalayas.
You know what? I did not know that about you. I'm jealous. I love traveling as well. And then I had kids and it became package holidays, all you can eat kind of vibes, which is lovely because the access to the pool and me not cooking is brilliant. But I feel like my kids are now getting old enough where we can start going on adventures again. Like I love traveling. It's amazing. Okay, so when you were a teenager, what kind of books did you love the most?
So the book that first changed my life was S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. It just resonated me in a way that nothing else had. I just completely fell in love with the characters. So like the main character is called Coney Boy and he's got an older brother called Soda Pop. And even that, characters in a book with these really weird names, it for itself was just amazing. followed closely by Mallory Blackman's Noughts and Crosses. I read those two books within 6 months of each other, and I was 14. And they both just changed everything. They blew my mind. Noughts and Crosses, I cried to the point that my mom called upstairs and was like, "What is going on?" And I was like, so it was just amazing. And obviously, with Noughts and Crosses, please read this book, whoever is listening to this, if you haven't already. But it's such a important piece of literature where we looked at the what if, which also happens in Princess apparently. What if things were the other way around, and it was the white community who went through what the black community went through? As a concept, it absolutely blew my mind. And plus, it's just so romantic, and at that age you feel everything so strongly. And Mallory Blackman has this amazing way of really capturing how teenagers feel. It just resonated with me so highly. And then I went on to read Judy Blume, that type of thing. But as I was saying earlier, if there's words, I'm reading it, like the back of the packet, like that's that. I know how it's made.
All right. Siren, what is your favorite way to read? Print, ebook, audio? What's your preferred?
So I am all about visual learning. So I need to feel the book. I need to see the book. So I'm all print. However, a job that I had previously, I was traveling all over the UK with it, and I was spending so much time in the car that I started getting into audio. And it really helped with my auditory learning, because I'd never used that way to learn before. I was always visual. So yes, print 100%, but I have got a soft spot for audiobooks now because I can still wash up and do really mundane things and actually be in a fantasy world somewhere else.
We need to make sure that Princess apparently is an audiobook, right?
Yeah.
Like I can really hear it.
Yes.
To be honest, I can see it as well. Yeah, I think it'd make a glorious audiobook. Let's try and make that happen. Okay, where is your favorite place to write?
I am a coffee shop writer. I like to have something else going on while I'm thinking. I love seeing people and hearing the hustle and bustle of life around me. Sometimes I'll need a background character and I'll look up and I'll see someone with red hair and, oh, you're going in the book. And it's so inspiring to be around real life. A lot of Princess apparently was actually written in Tunisia, because that's where my husband's from. And as I was always going there to visit him at the time, he's now in England. But at the time, I was always in Tunisia, and I would sit in the coffee shops there. And their coffee shops there are amazing. It's like, it's coffee shops and everyone there, and it's hustling and bustling, and it's just brilliant. It was definitely the vibe that I loved having to put into Princess apparently.
Oh, that sounds like such a vibe. That sounds amazing. I think you've got to do a podcast that's sort of books and travel. Like the way you talk about the books and the way you talk about travel is just so appealing. There you go. Not like you haven't got enough to do with all the things that you do. Just start a podcast about books and travel, please. Because I listen. So yeah, so one of the reasons you're so busy is you're a teacher, right? So what 3 words would your students use to describe you?
I'd like to think that they see me as quite easygoing. I don't like to add to their stress, so I'm as chill as I possibly can be. Funny, hopefully. I like to laugh with them. I always said I've got the humor of a 14-year-old boy, and I really think I do. And I think that's why I get along with the age group. Hopefully knowledgeable, but I do work from home, and that means that Google is always readily accessible.
Oh, own it, babes. Yes, knowledgeable. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Okay, and when you're writing a character, and maybe let's think about Della here, who's our protagonist in Princess Apparently, do you see them first or hear their voice first?
This question is hilarious because I have never heard my characters' voices, I don't think. Because I'm such a visual person, I have such a vivid imagination. Everything is just visual for me. And even when they speak, but in my mind, they speak like a cartoon, like a speech bubble.
Really?
I have like an auditory imagination, I don't think. Yeah, so really interesting question there. Yeah. But even when I dream in cartoon. Yeah.
No.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I don't think I've heard Della. I've just seen her and read her work like a comic strip, read her voice.
My gosh, that's amazing. I would say definitely I'm more visual than audio, but I like it's quite filmic. It like runs like a track in my head, but there's not subtitles or speech bubbles. Like people are speaking. When ideas arrive, it might be the title for something, but more often it's like a visual idea for something that sort of pops into my head. But yeah, there's some people when they're imagining it is all audio. I kind of
Yeah.
find that so fascinating about that creative process. Okay, just a couple more of these rapid fire then. What is the one theme you hope readers connect with in Princess Apparently?
I think for teenagers that the teenage experience is really universal. And I really hope that comes across that she's from London, she's in the Caribbean, and she's meeting people who she gets on with so well. They're at the same time of life. And there's characters in the book that we don't really get to go into depth with, but I hope that there's enough representation to be like, oh yeah, that's what I went through, or that's how I feel. And I remember feeling that feeling. And I hope, so that's for teens. And I hope for parents, because I really hope that parents want to read this book, or anyone, young adults, and they kind of get that jolt of memory of like, yeah, that's actually what they're going through right now. Maybe I can be less hard on them because this is exactly how they feel. And it's just making hopefully teenagers feel connected to the people around them and to not be scared to do things outside of the box and to meet people who they probably wouldn't normally be rubbing shoulders with. I think that's the message that I most like about the book.
Oh, that's lovely. So only a very few people have got to meet Della yet, are the main character in Princess Apparently, because this book is out in August. We're currently recording this in July. Today, the final physical copies of the books arrived. It looks glorious. So for everyone who hasn't met Della yet, can you give us a taste of who she is, but also the world we're stepping into with Princess Apparently, and what's at stake for Della in this story, but maybe not with too many spoilers? How does that sound?
Good. So Della is our teenage mixed race protagonist. She is from a family where she only knows the white side of her family. So that alone, massive talking point for the book. She's also crushing hard on her bestie again, hopefully something that people connect to or teenagers connect to. And after a protest goes live on TikTok, Della is thrown into the woes of the Caribbean because she wins a trip to go out there. What's at stake for Della? Oh, hard to say without spoilers. Hard to
No,
say.
it's hard. It's so hard because it's such a juicy spoiler.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how far we can get into this podcast without. We might need to spoil it, right? But shall we see how we go?
See how we go. Does it quite well.
But yes, read the blurb.
I'm just going to read this. Okay, I'll read all of it.
Yeah, go for it.
2 weeks ago and a few thousand miles away, Della was just a normal teenage girl. She didn't fit in at her posh school in London. She didn't think her crush would ever like her back, and she certainly didn't know anything about a Caribbean royal family. But when a video of her protesting goes viral, she receives a royal invitation that changes everything. Now she's at a lavish ball in a Caribbean palace, caught in a love triangle with her best friend and a dreamy islander, and discovering dangerous royal secrets. With so much at stake, the last thing Della needs is to find out that her connection to the royal family runs far deeper than she ever imagined.
This is me clicking. Like my daughter would say, clock it. Come on. It sounds so delicious. I honestly just genuinely think teenagers are going to love this, right?
I really hope so.
Yeah.
It is fun. It's a fun read. It's a summer read, and hopefully one to make an impact.
Wow, wonderful. Okay, so it might be interesting because I obviously know this story because I was there for part of it. But can you tell us how the collaboration came about And also, what attracted you to the story? Why you decided that you would be the writer of Princess, apparently?
So, first of all, some of my work got published. A short story had been published by an American e-zine, and I had that on the top of my Twitter, now X. And Jasmine found that work and jumped in my DMs and talked about basically story mates and how it's a packager. I'd never heard of this before, so I was very naive to the publishing world. I didn't really know what a packager did, and I remember thinking, oh, like you opened up another chapter I'd never thought about. And I remember that you'd said, let's book in and we'll talk about this at another time. And it just hadn't happened at that point. And time had gone on. And I then again entered a competition to go to the British Black Book Festival with the Jericho Prize. And I won. And they put my name saying that I was going, and Jasmine saw my name. I was like, I know her. We're going to the same event. And so she DM'd me and said, we're going to be at the same event. Let's catch up when we're there. Amazing. I go there. Jasmine obviously is very busy the whole day. She's on the panels. She was doing lots of stuff behind the scenes, unbeknownst to me. So we were literally like two ships in the night, weren't we? We were like, hi, I'm Siren. Oh, I'm Jasmine. We're going to catch up, but it's not going to happen today. At the same time, the festival was amazing. Can't plug it enough. Ashley Thorpe was talking about working in publishing, and Ashley really stood out to me because I love talking about writing, but Ashley, I found that day, was the only one who talked about books. He loved reading, and it really came across to me. And so out of everyone on all those panels, there were agents, there were publishers. Ashley really stood out to me as a reader, and that was why I wanted to get in touch with him. So my plan that day was to go up and say, hi, Ashley, I'm Siren. But because he'd been on this panel, obviously that was everybody's plan. And every time I saw him look a tiny bit available, someone would make it over to him before me. And in the end, I just kind of thought, okay, I'm going to go home and I'll look him up there. So I went back, and once again on Twitter, I found Ashley. I DM'd him. I said, I'm a writer. This is some of my work. Pleased to meet you. Ashley didn't represent the age group, I think, because the words that I sent him were for a YA, if I remember correctly. But we just had a nice, polite little chat on each other's radar type of thing. And that was it. Now, unbeknownst to me, behind the scenes at the British Book Festival, Jasmine was recruiting Ashley or interviewing him to be the editor at Story Mix. Like, talk about cosmic alignment, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. But for whatever reason, us three got brought together, and we really did. And so when Ashley was offered the job at StoryMix and obviously accepted it, the first project was all about exploring a mixed race protagonist and obviously someone who could write. And I was the person that both of you had spoken to, had read my work. And I remember Ashley being like, this is yours.
You know, you don't know this, Siren, but I remember Ashley and I speaking. So, you know, I love your piece in the zine, which is like this girl's relationship with death, effectively. Yeah. And it's almost like a bit like a death, like it's so kind of sexy and dark. Like, I love it. You need to write that as a novel. You know, I love that, right? And I love your writing. And we were having the conversation. So we both said you, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I feel like her voice might be a bit too old. It might be a bit too dark. And it was Ashley who was like, no, it's her. It's got to be her. He was 100% right. You know, he's a clever guy. He's an author, editor, really special soul, isn't he?
Yeah, because that piece in the zine was a very sultry, almost adult, basically, piece of writing. But Ashley had read my first few chapters of my YA, because that's what I sent him when I jumped in his DMs. So he knew that I had that sort of fighter side to my writing if I so chose to use it. And yeah, he did tell me, he was like, this is yours, this is your book. Like, I pushed for this and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. There was an element of it being like light-hearted, funny and that, and I was like, right up my street, just give it me, don't worry, right up my street. And obviously I am so happy that you both agreed to hand me the project. And yeah,
Oh, because that is the thing with Story Mix. We're trying to do a few things all at the same time, right? So we're at the sharp, pointy end of making commercial stories. Like, we're not here to make worthy stories. Doesn't mean our stories aren't of worth and can't talk about important things, but I'm not interested in making worthy stories. I want to create stories or create a space for stories that can be funny and romantic and can be a thriller and can all of those things which are in Princess apparently. So that's really, really important. But we're also trying to launch new talent, right? And again, we talk about it as a launch pad or incubator. So making sure that we're sort of matchmaking the right author with the right project so they can really shine. And then what I want to happen is, you know, next time, let's say I came to you about a project, you're like, Jasmine Bays, I would, but I've just sold my own 2-bit project. I'm far too busy, you know. That happens, then the Story Mix method has worked. Like, we've knocked it out the park because not only have we created this wonderful book with you, you're on your way to being an established author. And when I go to publishing parties, it's not just me one in the corner and there's no melanin in the room. I'm like, okay, Siren, okay, there's Isaac, okay, you know, that's what I want. Yeah, it was always you. Even if I didn't see it straight away and Ashley needed me to see it, like, you were the right voice. 100%.
Love it. Love it.
All right. So tell us a bit about Della. Talk me through where she's at the beginning of the story.
So Della, at the beginning of the story, she is in a very posh school, or let's say surrounded by wealthy people when she doesn't actually come from a wealthy family, which makes her feel very alienated. She also just feels out of place. She's pretty much the only mixed race person or person of color, anyone from the Black community within her school. She references knowing one in the school, and she just feels out of place, you know. So she's getting along fine with everyone. Her best friend's white, her dad is white, her grandma is white, and she's existing amongst all these people, and she's half Black, and she needs to feel some kind of connection to the whole part of her that is screaming out for it. I think talking about mixed race, it's really hard not to reference it as half and half and quarter, and we so want to move away from that type of language. It was really hard to navigate that because even as a child, I was referenced as, am I allowed to say this? But we were called half caste as kids.
Yeah.
That's what we were called. Like, I was literally called half caste until I was about 15, 16, and then it became mixed parentage, and then it became mixed race. So in terms of us writing a fun book, as you said, we've got all these massive, massive streams running through it of really big topics that we're trying to navigate, but without it being a lesson, which is the biggest thing. And as you said, Story Mix are all about launching people who have been underrepresented in the past. And what I've always found is that, okay, say for instance, we get a new Black sitcom or something, what you'll find is it's educational. And I always sit there and I think, who is this book for? Who is this for? Is this for white people to understand Black people? Why is that our audience? And I think that was something I was really conscious of while writing this story. I didn't want it to be, you need to read this book in order to understand mixed race. I don't want to be part of that. I think that we belong. We're already here. We exist. And that's the underline of Story Mix. We're here. We don't have to educate you about anything for you to feel that we deserve a space on the shelf. We exist. And I think Della really represented that for me, because I never read a book with a mixed race protagonist until maybe 16, 17. As a child, I never ever saw one. And you know what's worse? I never recognized that I wasn't in those books. So these conversations and thinking more about literature and what it means to me, and I've completely gone off from
No, it's sorry.
I'm sorry.
But I'm like nodding nodding my head off. Like, I have mixed kids, and we're always so careful not to talk about halves, only whole.
Mm.
I did explain this. My kids have never heard the phrase half caste, but I grew up and people use that word freely around me, around my mixed race friends. And I actually sort of Googled it, and it's a term to do with like the purity of gold. Like, it's so wild. It's so wild that that was in common parlance until quite recently, right? Like, how wild. I just like, the mind boggles. The mind absolutely boggles. And that's what's interesting about language and words, is it shows up the system and the people. Like, your racism is showing, guys. Like, we didn't make up that phrase, did we? That didn't come from us. So interesting. And I love sort of hearing you speak about the importance of sort of mixed race representation, but also that connection to all parts of yourself. So I'm not mixed, but my family are originally from the Caribbean, but maybe like 3 generations ago. So it feels so sort of distant. Jamaica does, right? But then I still feel that connection. But if I went there, they would just call me English and can't really speak patois, but I understand it better than your average. And, you know, all of that kind of complicated and nuanced, isn't it?
It is. It's so complicated. It really is. Yeah. And I was very aware that we were touching on that. And I wanted the importance of Della feeling whole, as we said, to come across on the page without it being an educational book about because we just deserve to have a fun book.
We do.
Or, you know, like the same as our lives. We live our lives. We don't live our lives walking around trying to educate people. So why does our media have to be that? And all I can say is we exist. And as we exist is how we want to show up in art, in literature, in TV, in radio. And that's what we deserve. And I'm really proud of the fact that I feel like Princess apparently fulfills that. You know, it's a fun book. It is a teen book. It's a romantic book. It's an emotional book before it's bashing anyone over the head on what we wish that they cared about, to be completely honest. Oh, damn. I might have to like take some of this out. I don't know.
No, well, you better not. We're not taking any out. Yes, Crete. Yes. That's it. Yes, we're done. Yes, done. It's amazing. Now, one of the things he didn't say there is that it's also, I suppose we could almost call it like a sci-fi or fantasy book, right? Because one of the things that we play with is this idea of a sort of sliding door in history, and that you've got this Caribbean island that has this established monarchy that has existed since the 1700s. So we're definitely not about it being a book that's educational, but there is some education in there, right? Do you want to tell our listeners a bit about that part of the story?
Yeah, so the Caribbean island that Della ends up at is called Saint Antonique, and what's unfortunately fantastical about the book is that the royal family are all black or black descent. All the lords and ladies are all black. And I remember when the project was first handed to me, there being you'd said something about school visits. And again, growing up in England, we go to all these stately homes. You know, you're visiting all these homes all the time. You're looking at all these pictures of some really old people, and they are not black or brown or any other color. And once again, I remember having this thing of like, did I even notice? Because was I allowed to notice? Was me noticing gonna just bring a problem for me, in the sense of I noticed the opposite, but did you allow yourself to feel rage against it? Did you allow yourself to think what should be different here? And I just loved that. I just remember reading that, and it really resonated with me because I remember all those school visits and there were no black people on the walls. We didn't see ourselves represented in that way. And it was just really, I loved that. That really helped me to write the book because it was again, just visiting something that I would have thought about as a teenager and maybe hadn't allowed myself to think much about since. And it was so cool to kind of imagine this palace that had all these pictures of Black royalty and Black lords and ladies and what that culture would look like. And it was a beautiful thing to immerse myself into. And one thing that I did reference, my favorite author ever is called Alexandre Dumas. He wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. He is Black and he was
Yeah.
adored. Even when I first saw pictures of him, they obviously made it look as if he wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't until I just looked further into him and I was like, he's Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I made sure to make mention of that in the book.
I love
Because
that.
it it's significant, and yeah, it was really cool to explore that. And again, I wish it wasn't the fantastical side of the book, but unfortunately
Well, it's interesting actually. I was just looking on my bookshelf here because I have a book called The Black Count, actually, which is all about Alexander's father,
oh
right?
yeah,
Who was this amazing general in the French army and all those things. And, I'm really a history buff. I love history. And it's interesting what you're saying as a kid or as a teenager, what you notice and what you don't notice. And I think there is a bit of protecting yourself. So, I did an English degree. I really enjoyed reading Jane Austen. But now I actually really struggle to read Jane Austen or even watch Jane Austen because all of those stately homes, like, they're built on a foundation of enslaved bodies. Like, and Mansfield Park talks about that a little bit, sort of is at the edges of that story. But, and all of those stately homes and, work is happening to reference that. But a lot of people like, oh, can't you just let me enjoy my National Trust pass? Like, I don't want to get into all of that. But all of that is what kind of built it. And there was a painting of these Haitian princesses, right? And they visited the UK twice, and Haiti had its own monarchy. Like, it actually had two separate dynasties. And Haiti is this amazing island that managed to overthrow the French and the Spanish and the English and everyone and try and claim the island. And really, all of those countries conspired because they couldn't have a Caribbean island that was self-governed with their own monarchy survive, or the whole thing falls apart, right? So I think as well in this book is this idea of this is not all fantasy. There was a monarchy in the Caribbean in 1700s. What would it look like if that was still going, And it's all bound up in truth and in history, but it's also fantasy.
yes.
Oh, now all of those Jane Austen fans are going to be upset with me, but I said what I said. Okay, so I think you spoke so beautifully about what it means to be both and in between. And I think this is also very true of what it means to be a teenager, right? You're not really a kid, you're not an adult, and you're somewhere in between. As someone who teaches teenagers, what do you think we get wrong about creating books and media for them, or just get wrong about teens generally?
Oh, I think not trusting the intelligence of teenagers is something that I sometimes see. They don't need to be beaten over the head with certain things. And I think at the moment, Gen X and Gen Z are getting this really bad rap of no one wants to work and no one wants to do this and that. They've got it right. They are the ones saying, I don't want to sit in an office chair for 8 hours and you're not going to make me do it. I wish millennials did it. Like, I am so on their side and I'm so proud of them for being like, this is silly. Why would I want to do that with my time? And instead of it being, oh, no, this is how it's always been and this is what we've got to do, we should be in support because we all felt like that. Anyone who's ended up being their own boss or going their own way, it's because you didn't want somebody telling you that you had to ask to book a funeral, or you had to ask to go to lunch, or you had to tell someone when you needed the toilet because you're an adult. And this generation are really, really aware of what they don't want. And that is so, so powerful. And I think that at the moment, we've still got the older generation who are trying to make them submissive into a life that they don't even like. You know, they're only going to moan, oh, I worked 40 years and I've got this out of it. Like,
That
sorry,
your old person voice. Let
that's
me
my
hear it
old
again.
person voice.
Yeah, let me hear it again.
This is my old person voice. So yeah, we're on the same side. We're on the same side, but the difference is that Gen X, Gen Z have had the guts to go through it. They've had the guts to say, I'm not delivering pizzas for 12 hours and I don't care. Like, and I'm going to go home instead. And, you know, I absolutely love it about them. They've got so much gumption and they're so much more attracted to making careers out of things that they find fun. And then at the same time, you're still going to get the people who are like, oh, well, if you're not doing this, I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to take care of all the cleaning opportunities and all the gardening opportunities and everything else. And, you know, we don't need to have our hands in with them. They know what they're doing. There's lots of people with lots of different personalities and they're okay.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, the kids
Yeah.
are all right.
Yeah.
They're all right. I'd say that that's my biggest thing. Like, everyone's trying to control the way that they do things because it's new. They are really paving their own way. And I don't think that we have to be so distrustful of that.
Mm. Do you think that links as well? And like, this is very true of Della. Like, she has strong feelings about the environment, about the NHS, all of these things. But then the news tells us that teens are really politically disengaged. What's your experience working with teens?
I'd say one big truth is the area that you come from. So when I teach in certain areas, I will find that they are so much more engaged politically because they come from a place that allows them to feel like their voice makes a difference.
Mm.
In a city, not so much because they're, and this is totally a generalization, but just from my experience, if you're told from a very young age that nothing's going to change and we don't care about what you think and this is the way that things are got to be, it can work one way or the other. And sometimes you get demographics that all sort of take a step back from it, I guess, from having any sort of political engagement because maybe feeling like nobody's going to listen to them. So weirdly, that question really has a different answer depending on the areas that you teach in or just communicate with teenagers in. The generations above were told work hard and put in all of this graft. You're going to get looked after by your employer. You know, you're going to get tenure, you're going to get benefits, you're going to get promotions and things like that if you stick in a job. And you're also going to be able to afford a house. And if you want to have children, you're going to be able to afford them. It's not the same anymore. Working at a place for a long period of time no longer rewards you. In fact, you probably find that you're getting paid less in this day and age. Who can afford a house? Gen Z and Gen X, no sniff of it. It's not going to happen. And families, my two TAs, when I used to work in the centres, both of them had children. And in schools and nurseries, if you cough, you are getting sent home. Now, imagine you are a single mom and you've got a child that's coughed at school and he now has to go home for 2 days, meaning you can't go to work. You know, there is no support for anyone who has children and they're a one-parent household. And that's where our issues are. There's no bridging of these gaps. So when everyone's saying, well, why aren't you working and why are you not doing this? Why should I? I'm not going to get the same things you got out of it. Like you bought a house for £25,000. I can't even put a deposit down for £25,000. You know,
it's like the social contract has kind of broken, right? So the older folk can kind of be like, well, that's really out of order because you're not treading the same path as me. It's like, yeah, but the path doesn't take us to the same destination. Can't, literally can't. Even the stuff with the student loans and how the interest was charged on that, like, that is basically mis-selling. There's a whole generation of students that have come out and they sort of drank the Kool-Aid and they thought if we get our degree and even if we pay the student loan, and it was basically a con. Like, it makes me so angry. Yeah, I agree. Like, you can't expect them to behave in the same way as previous generations when
There's no payoffs.
the rewards are not the same. It's not the same. We're not playing the same game anymore.
And then along that, running parallel to that is being a content creator, being a YouTuber, being a coder, being into cryptocurrency. You can see where the breakdown is. So instead of the nagging of, well, you should be doing this, put things into place so that they naturally want to do things. You know, you collect more flies with honey than you do vinegar. Like, there should be something that they want to work towards. And I'd say that that's just the biggest thing that I can see. It's the biggest disconnect between the generations. And I really hope the people with any kind of sway recognize it. Sue, you know, you've got this amazing bunch of entrepreneurs, you know, creative people, and there's no need for there to be any sort of disconnect between the two generations at all. And hopefully things get better in that way.
Oh, that's lovely. Siren for government. Listen, come on. You can fit it in. Be an MP, you can be an author, you can be a teacher. Honestly, I've got a 13-year-old son and I've just been schooled and I loved it. Like, honestly, I'm thinking, because we've been thinking about what things to do over the summer, and actually even just asking him his interests. Like, we could do a project, but let's do it around something he's passionate about, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff, Siren. Where can people connect with you in and on socials?
I'm on Instagram as Siren Knight, SIRENKNIGHT, and TikTok. I actually post more on TikTok at the moment just because I find it a little bit, I don't know, like you can just post and not think about it. Whereas Instagram, I think I know more people on there, so I overthink it. But TikTok is SIRENKN1GHT. So instead of the I in night, it's one. I am on there. I always answer anyone who comments as long as you're not a bot or something. So please do follow along. I'll be happy to meet you.
Oh, wonderful. I've so enjoyed talking to you today. Princess apparently out in August. The package looks glorious. Big up to Usborne, who've done a great job on the package there, and the illustrator as well.
Mimi Muffy.
Yeah, she's done such a brilliant job. They've done a brilliant job. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us on Story Mix Craft and Conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been so much fun. I think I forgot that it was being recorded. We're always like this, Jasmine, though.
Always.
Thanks for listening to Story Mix Craft and Conversation. My guest today was Siren Knight, author of Princess Apparently, published by Usborne on 13th of August 2026. You'll see links to our guest, the book, and everything we mentioned in today's conversation in the show notes. If you enjoyed the episode, follow, like and subscribe to Story Mix Craft and Conversations so you don't miss the next one. And if you'd like to support Story Mix and help us keep creating opportunities for writers and illustrators, you can buy us a coffee through Ko-Fi. You'll find the link in the show notes. You can discover more about Story Mix and the books we create at storymix.co.uk, and come say hi on our socials at Story Mix Studio. I'm Jasmine Richards. See you next time.